Let's bring in Chief Editor of the Middle East Forum, Jim Hanson. Jim, good morning to you. We're talking about an escalation in conflict between two nuclear-armed countries. How should we view this development, and what happens next?
There's no upside to any of this. This is not the first time that Pakistani terrorists inside of India. The Mumbai attacks were done by apparently one of the same groups that was involved with this. And India holds the Pakistani government responsible for the fact that those groups are allowed to operate and have safe haven in their country. So the idea that they would attack what was a camp they say was one of the ones involved in this is not surprising. What remains to be seen is how badly Pakistan feels they need to go ahead and retaliate, and will that escalate things into open conflict?
Jim, this sort of took everyone by surprise, obviously, that follow global events here in the U.S. And now, as you point out, we have two nuclear-armed countries with a long history of war. How concerned are you that this escalates?
These guys have been butting heads for, if you look at the Hindus and Muslims fighting in that area for 1,000 years, but if you look at just the India and Pakistan since 1947. So they have an ongoing dispute over Kashmir, the entire region. One of the more interesting things, they have a border crossing there where every day the two countries have their militaries dress up and they have essentially a dance-off. They have a conflict of parade where there are bleachers on both sides. The tourists come and watch. This is a kind of a low simmering boil at all times. Now the fact that there was a terrorist attack killing dozens of tourists in India, and now the retaliation inside of Pakistan, that could definitely reach a much higher boil if this doesn't stop soon.
Well, if this does escalate, we have good relations with India mixed with Pakistan. What does U.S. involvement look like?
There's been a shift over the past few years where Pakistan has begun aligning more tightly with China, and India has been aligning more tightly with the United States, both in the military hardware they buy and in overall relations. India is one of the countries that President Trump is most likely to make a trade deal with in the near future. So I think we have a large amount of if not influence, at least connectivity with India and less with Pakistan. We've been removing ourselves from them. So hopefully we can, convince the Indians that this does not need to turn into another war. We've got a land war in Europe that's been going on for 3 years. The Middle East is still on fire. We do not need the two large countries there with nuclear weapons turning this into even a more dangerous situation.
Jim, let me just lastly work in here. How does China or Russia factor into this incident?
Russia used to supply a lot of military equipment to India. And that's been less over the passing years. And as I mentioned, China has become more tightly aligned with Pakistan. We used to have a very, a tight relationship with Pakistan. It was never good. We never had a trusted relationship with them because they have so many terrorist groups that operate in their territories. They had bin Laden hidden there for years and years. So we've moved away from that as we moved away from Afghanistan. So I think there is the element of a U.S. and China behind the scenes on this, both probably talking to the respective countries. And the hope is that we can at least say this does not need to become a larger war. And it's certainly no one wants this to go to the highest level, and have the nuclear genie out of the bottle.
Jim Hanson, thank you so much for joining us with your analysis on this. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim.